The Amazing Casuals, Phil and Will, are back once again, Alexaless, for our Amazing Race 31, Episode 8 recap. It's Friday, so we're only 2 days behind on when the episode aired. But, Will, I know you've been having a very hard time following this season. It's hard for you to keep up with the Amazing Race format. But this time we actually got something you understand, which was a vote. And that had to have made you very excited.
Yeah, and pretty much everything that I wasn't really comprehending with the Amazing Race, like I understand it now, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like now there's a vote and that's all you needed. Also, I think you just unplugged your mic. But anyway, I was going to text you that, but why would I do that? Yeah, I mean, and Chris and Brett have the deciding votes. Like what better way than to have the last Survivor team left in the game actually cast the decisive vote in this U-turn vote, which I actually thought was a pretty interesting concept. I don't know if they've done this on the Amazing Race before,
but
they
have. Cool. I think this kind of upgrades us from, casual to now we're in this. Like we are now providing a real first take on a new twist. So I actually really enjoyed it. And I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And this is one time where strategy is actually a big part of the Amazing Race because you can't hide. It's an open vote. Everybody's doing it. And had Chris and Brett voted for somebody else, even if they would have voted for a team that had no votes, and I don't remember exactly who had no votes at that time, but let's say they voted for Team Fun, then you're putting it in the Riley sisters' hands to decide who ends up getting double U-turn. So I agree with them.
Let's revisit that. I think it was at that point it was 3 votes Colin and Christy, and then 1 vote for the Riley sisters at that
one
point.
For Nicole and Victor, and 1 for the Afghanimals.
Right. So if they had voted for Team Fun or like Tyler and Corey, then you're looking at like a 4-way tie for the second team. Then why would the Riley sisters then?
Phil said that we'll keep voting until we've determined the 2 teams. So I think that's why whoever the next vote would have broken the tie. Because I think it was like they were just going to go in order. They had randomly drawn. So really the Riley sisters would have been the only team to get 2 votes. At least that's the way I understood it.
I feel like if you're going to do a revote, everyone, or not even a revote, like then the people who are kind of safe, kind of like in Survivor, you vote for the people who are on the block, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's interesting. I don't know how it would have gone. For some reason, the way I interpreted it was they were just going to keep voting in a circle. Once they went through once, like whoever had the most votes obviously was going. If you had the second most votes, you were going. I mean,
that would be pretty lame, I feel.
It would be pretty lame. But either way, how did you feel about Chris and Brett's decision to do it to the Riley sisters?
There was a lot of talk about this being an emotional decision and not a game decision. And I guess from like a very like quick look at it, someone might think that, but it was very odd to me that it was portrayed that way because I think this was the only move you can do game wise. I think this was absolutely the right decision. A few things on it. One is that if Chris and Brett perceive themselves to be a weak team, as they probably do. Like they're gaining a lot of confidence. They get second place this week. They'd already gotten a second place finish, but they know they're not an Amazing Race team. They know they're not like a front runner to win this thing, and that any leg of the race they could get last and go home. They've already gotten last in the leg. That is fully within the realm of possibility that they could go home this week. So if you are them and that is your understanding, and the Riley sisters even said this to them after point blank, then you obviously don't want to pick a strong team, because if you have an opportunity to pick a weak team, then that will put them behind you and guarantee you a spot to move forward. So I think this was absolutely the correct call, and people can say it was emotional. I really think from just looking at it from that way, let's say they had put it on Nicole and Victor. Nicole and Victor and Colin and Christy, they probably both get through that U-turn.
The Afghanimals probably get last place if they put it on Nicole and Victor or Colin and Christy.
Right. So just from looking at it that way, you don't want to send strong teams there, because then those are the teams that will handle it no problem. You want a U-turn to burden a team, and if it's not going to have any, you want your vote to mean something. So I think it's absolutely the right call. And then looking at it from the other side of, this was an emotional move. I think in a game like Amazing Race, that's absolutely okay. Brett even said, like, I'm friends with all these teams. Chris said, yeah, we like everybody. They've never talked to us. Brett kept saying, never said a word to me. When you're racing in the future, that's going to be very helpful to have, teams that are going to, hey, follow us. We'll lead the way. So something like that, little things. I think that's fine to base a decision on that. I don't know why that was viewed so negatively that this wasn't
because it's Rachel. Because Rachel she's the biggest personality on the season. So when she's complaining, it's going to get a lot of screen time, and she's yelling at them that you guys aren't a good team either. My whole thinking is, I have a couple thoughts on this. One, they've lost to Rachel and Alyssa before anyway. So who's to say that they're going to beat Rachel and Alyssa? Like, yes, they're the weakest team left, but Brett and Chris are probably the next weakest team. Like, why would you keep around Rachel and Alyssa, who have beaten you anyway? And then it's like, okay, we get rid of, let's say Nicole and Victor go home this week. Well, you still could lose to Rachel and Alyssa. Like, Brett and Chris are not guaranteed to beat anybody. So I have no problem with them playing Rachel and Alyssa. Also, Nicole and Victor already had a speed bump. Colin and Christy are doing the U-turn. So you have two strong teams that are going to be taking on some obstacles. Why piss off a team like Team Fun or Tyler and Corey, who, like you said, could just drag you through this race? And I always go back to the Andy and Tommy thing, which I know you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I always go back to it. That was a prime example of three teams. I think it was Ernie and Cindy knew they could beat Marcus, and I think it was his wife. And there was one other team who I forget who it was. I think it was two sisters. They knew they could beat both of them, and they said, follow us, because Andy and Tommy are lost. And all three of them drove, and those three teams are the final three, and Andy and Tommy go home in fourth, despite being the best team. Who doesn't want to take Brett and Chris to final five, to final four, to final three? Because if you get to final three, it's a race to the finish line. So first team there wins. Are you really scared that Brett is going to beat you to the finish line, no matter what the challenges are? Every single one of them could be shooting an apple off of a scarecrow's head. Brett still is going to have to run at some point in that leg. And if you're Tyler and Corey, you know you can outrun him every day of the week. Like, why would you not want to take them? So I do think initially it might be like, is this the right move? But I do think it is the right move, because you're eliminating a team that really nobody's friends with, that you're not friends with, that's never going to help you in the future, and that you're not guaranteed to beat anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. If they had put their vote on the Afghanimals and the Afghanimals somehow survived, then you have an enemy. And maybe the Riley sisters still lose, but like you said, you can't guarantee that. Maybe the Riley sisters finish ahead of you. Maybe you go home. I think, especially when Colin and Christy are already in the mix, you don't need to put another strong team in there. Like, have your safety net. Now, if it had been the Riley sisters already, who do they then vote for? Like, yeah, vote for a really strong team, and hopefully they trip up and you can eliminate one of the strong teams. But
here's the thing:
Chris and Brett aren't a team that is like, we gotta like play the long game here. Like, we know what we're doing. This is like, no, let's survive each leg of the race. We've already been last before. We know what can happen. There are no more non-elimination legs. Let's just get to the next week and worry about it then.
And here's the thing: Colin and Christy finished third anyway. Like, they got U-turned. They were in last place after the first detour, and they still got third place on the leg. So,
and what did Nicole and Victor get? Did they get like fourth place?
I think they were fifth, weren't they?
And they had a speed bump.
Sixth was Afghanimals. Why can I not say that? Sixth was Afghanimals.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And then fourth was who was fourth?
Fourth must have been
Tyler and Corey won. Then Brett and Chris, Colin and Christy.
Then Team Fun.
Then Team Fun. Yeah, Team Fun was 4. Yeah, so like Nicole and Victor had the speed bump. Like Rachel and Alyssa were way back there. You just, like you said, it's survive in advance, hope teams get lost. Like, that's all you're doing. Because we've spoken to Brett and Chris both before. They're realistic people. Neither one of them was saying that they should have won Survivor, Money vs. Gen X. Like, neither one. Like, they're very realistic people.
I think Brett was saying if we got to the end, he wins hands down.
Well, against Hannah and Ken, he didn't think he beat Adam. Maybe he thinks he could beat Adam.
He thought he could beat Adam.
That's when he yelled at us that this was the Adam show. But which I will never forget for as long as I live. But it's just like, I think they're realistic enough to know, like, we probably aren't going to win this, we don't want the Riley sisters, or as they call them, the O'Reilly sisters, to win either. Like, they don't want that. So why would, like, if you really hate a team that much, a game like the Amazing Race is one where it's like, we're just going to get rid of, like, we're just going to do everything we can to make sure you go home this week.
Yeah, and again, they're the weakest team. They're the most likely to go home if you pick them, and then you have no enemies. Like, that's, I think, that's a huge part of the game. You see that with Nicole and Victor, they throw a vote at the Afghanimals, and they didn't even get U-turned, and the Afghanimals are still like, they want revenge just for getting one vote. And it's like, honestly, getting votes in this the whole time was considered a compliment. So I don't know. I think it was totally the right move. I think what's interesting here, this is what I really would have liked to see. I don't know if we need to go through this whole scenario, but wouldn't it have been better to, instead of randomize the order in which you vote, because that's the order in which you vote is paramount here.
I already know what you're going to say.
It should be the reverse order from the placement of the last week.
So you think the first team to vote
First team to vote
last
should have been the team that got last, especially when it's a non-elimination leg. Like, punish them for sure. Like, then the team that got first gets to vote last and have like the decide. Like, that's a great prize. That's a great game reward instead of like Travelocity hanging out with a gnome.
Yeah, because Brett and Chris get 6th place last week and they vote last. Although the one thing is, if the last place team votes first, what could happen in that situation is then all of a sudden there's a lot of piggybacking. So let's say that who was last? It was Rachel and Alyssa, right?
But the people in last are the weakest, and that's the most less likely to be voted for.
What I'm saying is,
Tyler and Corey were first. That actually probably would have put some heat on that. Even though
what I'm saying is, if Nicole and Victor vote for Colin and Christy, then Brett and Chris might just be like, all right, we're going to vote the same way. We're going to vote for Colin and Christy. And then Rachel and Alyssa could just be like, all right, we're going to vote for Colin and Christy. And there's a lot of piggybacking. So despite the fact that Colin and Christy got second place.
Didn't that happen anyway? And they know that two teams are going to get U-turned here. So if I see that Colin and Christy have 2 votes, I'm going to want to get a vote on someone else, some other team that I think is going to draw votes, so that I don't like, if everyone's going Colin and Christy, that means all it takes is a 1 vote for your team and you're running a U-turn against Colin and Christy. I just think it would have been this random order. I think it really disadvantaged some teams, and obviously Rachel, especially if you look at it this way. And we haven't really talked about this, but the decision from Victor essentially to vote for the Afghanimals. I do like how Nicole said, "Hey, it's up to you. Do what you want," and then he does what he wants, and then she gets really upset with him. But I am with her that it was completely the wrong decision for multiple reasons. One is what she said, where the Riley sisters already have like a vendetta against them. You're not gonna repair that. No reason to make new wounds with any of these other teams. The other point that wasn't brought up on the show is that they had already voted. They could not get they couldn't get revenge right there in that situation. So. I think that's why that was a clear choice. Vote Rachel and Alyssa. They've already voted. And so I think when you go through, if we had done this in reverse order, you might see more people voting against teams that have already voted, knowing that a vote won't come back against them in a revenge case. So not everyone's just going to pile on Colin Christie, because Colin Christie and maybe another team at the top like Tyler and Corey, they're going to have a vote. And if you vote for someone who's already voted, they cannot then go back and vote for you.
That's true. I was thinking because it would almost be like a reward if you get first place and you get to make the first decision. Because at first I was thinking I'd want to vote first, but I get what you're saying now, because if somebody's you're getting revenge at some point, and you can determine Brett and Chris
going last is the best because you know where all the votes are.
Brett and Chris having all of the power.
It's like going last in Tiki Topple.
Yes, going last in Tiki Topple, exactly. But Brett and Chris having all the power is crazy, and I like it because
it was random. It was funny, but again, if it had been something that had been earned, I just think it would have been interesting. Or if they do this in the future.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That was really the biggest thing from the beginning. I do want to say though, I love how this episode opens up. They travel. This doesn't open till 7, and then they all sprint as soon as it starts. And then Brett is at the front of the pack, sprinting as fast as his body will allow him. He gets passed by everybody anyway, And then it just turns into like, okay, we're gonna do a vote. So like he was sprinting for literally no reason, and then he's just exhausted. Like I'm having such a fun time watching Brett do this. I also liked Chris had tweeted out earlier today that he was having no problem running sub 6-minute miles on the treadmill. So it's not him that's the problem with the running, which we all know, Chris, but like, can you throw Brett on your back and carry him? Because the man's having a hard time. But I like love those little moments where it's like everybody's in this huge rush. We got to get there. And then it's just like, all right, we're all going to stand here. Like that's like, so we all ran for.
I like that they need to do it. It gets the excitement going, and then it's like a big surprise. Whoa, what's Phil doing here? Like this is going to be big. So I get that. Again, not a fan of the equalizer, but for a U-turn of vote, you have to have everybody in the same position. So,
and I think this U-turn vote was interesting enough. This was probably like one of the coolest things I've seen on this season. So to do that, I'm okay with them equalizing. I just I agree with you. Equalizing every week gets old, but this one I'm okay with them equalizing.
Equalizing after a non-elimination leg is a little kind of.
Did you notice though this week they were all very close in the times they were leaving?
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. Like last episode was barely a race.
Yeah,
it was kind of like the order. You just would go in this order pretty much the whole time until the end, where there actually was a pass. But that wasn't designed to be as much of a race.
So let's talk about. First, let's talk about the Rileys pulling the Afghanimals over to the side. And just like how blatant that was, what did you think about that? What did you think about Chris's really lame exercises that he was doing, just kind of twisting his back? What did you think about this whole situation?
I mean, it's the best part comes from Brett listening in and then calling Chris over, and they're like listening. Besides that, I maybe if we hadn't seen so many of these like talks and peace off, I mean, they just seem to go the same way every time, and maybe that's just this season. But as an amazing casual, I think we just see the same thing where it's one team apologizing, the other team saying, yeah, it's all good. And then they have a confessional where it's like, they're on our hit list. Like we don't forgive them at all.
Because they're always apologizing to the freaking Afghanimals.
Yeah, I mean,
say the same thing.
Yeah, so
the Afghanimals are like pull string.
I feel like we've seen that with other teams though, with Tyler and Corey, with obviously the Riley sisters, and other like Team Fun has been in there. I just feel like we've seen so many peace offerings and apologies that really have never worked once the entire season. So it's kind of like, okay.
I think what this was highlighting more, because the double U-turn was coming and Chris and Brett were about to vote for Rachel and Alyssa. I think what this was highlighting more is like Chris is saying right to the camera, once again, conversations going on that we're not a part of. Nobody asked us to go over and talk to them. So I think that this was meant more not to be highlighting so much the little powwow that they were having, but more that Chris and Brett felt left out, so that they could, like, it gives you reason why they're voting for the Rileys. When they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw something very similar at the start of last week, where the first 10 minutes, no racing, all this talk about a U-turn that doesn't come. That was to completely set up this week. And I agree with you that, that whole scene was to just build all this tension and suspense. And it is quite funny that Chris and Brett end up having the final vote in this historic, amazing race twist.
It's good to be Switzerland, right? It's good to be Switzerland in Switzerland is what.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was the go. Brett had been planning that since they were on the plane. There's no way he hadn't been. But then they have to go. We have Colin and Christy and Rachel and Alyssa. I mean, pretty much the thing is with that happening, my thinking is, okay, Rachel and Alyssa are going home this week. There's no way they're overcoming this. And yet they almost did, because the Afghanimals got lost. But I'm thinking like, there's no way they overcome this. With the detour, this is one I think you had mentioned in an earlier podcast. You got to go with not the cows, like with the hay bale one, because you don't want to have to try to control an animal, right?
I don't know if I ever said that explicitly. I said, from what it looks like to me, it always seems to do the kind of the more objective one for sure, but also the one that's just explicitly like do this and complete something. Instead of, okay, build a headdress for a cow and then we'll judge it and let you know later. Like, what if they had put the headdress on, walk the cow down, and someone's like, no, not good enough? Obviously, that didn't
And
happen.
Colin would have lost his mind.
Yeah, and we will talk about that. So I think they're laying the groundwork for something coming up.
Mhm.
But this is where I definitely go, okay, you need to stack it, however much hay to cover this stand or whatever it was. They were like kind of scarecrow looking. I was pretty confused on what they were putting the hay on, but they're kind of people.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense
I didn't
to me at
understand
all.
what that was. They didn't name it anything. It wasn't an irrigation wheel that I could go look up.
And it really didn't look like there was much of like a rhyme or reason to it. It was just like make sure
Put
it's
hay
all
on
off the ground. Yeah.
Right. So that was, and it seemed like if they were judging anything, it wasn't how the hay was stacked. It was how does your field look? Like how much loose? Because the guy would say, no, you missed a spot. So I think that was more important. But again, the physical activity that you can just kind of brute force, I think you go through that instead of like learning a dance or learning a language. What was like catch 8 fish or like go get your boat, get the 5 fish. Like those are always, I think, the way to go. It seems like Tyler and Corey always choose that also.
Yeah, I feel like Tyler and Corey are really
have that down.
They're really good at this. Yeah, I feel like they haven't chosen a wrong detour yet. And if they have, like they learn, maybe like in the first couple episodes they did, but then they learned from it. Yeah, this I think you always go with the hay bale thing, just because, especially like Colin, he's had that whole issue with like the cow in the past, and now they have this. If the cow doesn't want to walk, like what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing you can do. You grab the tail. Except now everybody knows that. And everybody, and whoever goes on the Amazing Race next, just going to be grabbing the tail and doing that. But I just like when you watch these certain things, like Chris and Brett, they're like, okay, this is our thing finally. Like, okay, we're cutting grass and raking it up. Here we go. This is what we were built for. And then Becca destroys Chris, like just demolished him in that part of the race. Like, and it's cool. I like seeing things like that.
They said she worked on a farm or something.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like we always try to figure out like what are Brett and Chris's things, because other teams kind of have their things. But like then all of a sudden Becca pulls this out, and it's like, are you kidding? Like really? Like she's great at cutting grass with a scythe? Like are you kidding? Like that, I just think that those are like really interesting. I loved watching Colin do it because he had like the form on every single one, and it was like perfect. And then obviously watching Rachel and Alyssa do it is always going to be entertaining. But it's just like, I don't know, like this is again like not the most exciting, but I do think that because they knew that they were doing the double U-turn, that there were going to be two teams doing both, you have to make them as different as you can, but still reasonable that a team could catch up even if they've been double U-turn. There's a lot of disadvantages going on this leg. 2 double U-turns and a speed bump. And honestly, this speed bump was probably actually the slowest.
I think there's 1 double U-turn.
Two teams got U-turn. And then you have the speed bump. And I actually think this was probably the slowest speed bump just because it seemed like tedious more than anything.
Yeah, this speed bump didn't do it. Yeah, but again, yet to have a speed bump really do it for me. I almost wish a speed bump would be something more like what we saw for the roadblock for this episode. Something that you can do quickly if you do it right, but can take a while. And it's not some task that, okay, no matter, you could have 10 teams hanging up folding flags, it's going to average probably within, a couple minutes of each other. Probably maybe average 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. But with the arrow and the apple, I think that could be a really good speed bump where you can just knock that out very quickly, move on, boom, you overcame it. Now, if that does happen, it's kind of hard to gauge the difficulty. If a team blows it out of the water, it's like, okay, that's a joke of a speed bump, and I'll be here complaining.
You'd be crying about it, no doubt.
So maybe that doesn't work, but it just seems these are folding laundry, making snow. They're just, I don't know.
You don't have to see another one the rest of the season, Will.
Yeah.
Are you excited about that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, take down flags and fold them. Is that really going to set you back that much in a 12-hour race or 10-hour race? Probably not.
No. Well, it didn't. And Nicole and Victor still came in 5th, although Victor was not very good at shooting the apple. Actually, that was finally, we found something Becca's not good at, is shooting a crossbow at an apple. She was not good at that. So what did you think? So then, God, really not that much happened in this episode then, other than this detour at the beginning, because the roadblock was super short. I mean, this is a very, very quick roadblock where there's not really much to dissect because you're literally just shooting a crossbow at an apple.
I think there's a lot to dissect here, not in terms of gameplay or strategy, but I am very confused as to how this game worked, I guess is the right way to say it. I think on multiple occasions, you would see the person who was shooting just standing doing nothing. It's almost like they had to wait a 5-minute penalty after each shot. Or they'd be looking at other teams. They'd be having an OTF which is on the fly interview where they're just talking to the camera, not like a sit down set up interview, but they're just talking to the cameraman. And it's like, you are in a race. Like, go run. I loved how the arms fell out and the head went back. Very visual, and it gave them, they had to run in, set it back up, come back. But did you notice this at all with, I think, Becca maybe a few times, and then
they probably
Jamal, I thought it probably happened on every team, even Rachel. They were talking to the camera. They were watching the other person go. They'd be like drinking water, taking a breath. You got it. This
Here's
thing is
my
all
guess.
about volume here. You just got to keep shooting, keep refining your shot, and the more shots you take, eventually you're going to hit it. So I am very curious what the regulations were.
What I think it was is that because it's like a pointed dart object, and because these people aren't very good at it, I bet that you had to wait until the people around you were done shooting it before you could go and retrieve your dart. That's what I'm assuming it was. So like, let's say like Brett shoots and misses. He now has to wait until Victor's done and Becca's done and Elizabeth, because I'm assuming they don't want you running up there and then somebody's so bad they end up shooting you with a freaking dart. That's my guess.
That's a very, very good guess. It's completely possible. I just wish they would have let the audience know. Like, I want to know how the game works, because then you can come up with the best way to attack it, and you can talk about these things. I'm kind of left in the dark. I just don't really know how it was operated. I guess that makes sense. It seems like everyone was, when they missed, they would just hit their scarecrow and his face would fall off.
And then you have to go. I like that you had to pick up the arms, put the head back on, because like that's kind of like your penalty for missing.
Yeah, but even let's say you have 5 teams shooting at once. Okay, you have to wait till that 5th team shoots. Then you run in. Then the scarecrow arms, that's barely a penalty, because then you just go and you can wait at. No one's going to go ahead of you. Each team's just going to get 1 shot. So that's not even a penalty. It's
a penalty, though, because there's other teams that aren't there yet. So if, like, let's say the first team that gets there, which I forget who the first – I think it was Becca and Fleur, the first team to get there. But they get there first. They're shooting. They miss. They have to put the arms and everything back on. It's delaying them before another team can get there.
Now I'm really starting to
call Phil Keyhogan.
Yeah, maybe. Now I'm really starting to doubt that your theory is true. Because if you have to wait for no one to be retrieving their arrow, someone could go and just stand there and say, well, my alliance, Afghanimals are my best friends. They're looking out for me in this game. I can now stand, not put the arms back on my scarecrow, prevent any other team from shooting because I am now downrange.
That's true.
And then the Afghanimals catch up on level playing field. Boom, I snipe it. Afghanimals snipe it. My alliance and I were headed to the next leg.
Yeah, that's something that I would have to rewatch, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm never gonna rewatch it. But that's something I'd probably have to rewatch to figure out what was going on there, because
I didn't need to rewatch it to know there was some restriction on how frequent they could, like, on their frequency of shooting, and I couldn't pin it down. I was really looking for clues. Why aren't they able to go? Especially when they're looking at the camera, like having an interview with the camera, like saying how hard it is, and they're drinking water, and they're just relaxed. There was no urgency at all in this roadblock. I don't know. And I did like your theory, but now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, now it doesn't make sense.
Really, right. They could be gamed so easily.
And then, so you ruined my theory. Thanks a lot, Will.
It could be true. And then they say, okay, you have 30 seconds to put who knows what the rules were? Maybe we can find out somehow. Ask Chris.
Yeah, because I'm sure there could have been like another thing that we just don't know about, where maybe like after you shot, the guy who was kind of helping you, there was always a guide there who was helping you shoot. That person could have been like fixing the crossbow for you or something like that. which again, like that does happen where other people can affect your race depending on how good they are. That's why it's like pick somebody who's good at this. And maybe like they were fixing something, setting something up, and while they were doing that, there's literally nothing you can do, so you just stand there and drink water. Like I don't know, but that would be my.
That's like another part of this was, I mean, the very little bit of training we saw was exactly what you said: how to load it, how to shoot it, so that they could do it themselves.
That's true. That's true. I mean, the best part is that all of a sudden Brett's being called Sarge. Love that all of a sudden happened, and that he drilled it like pretty quickly. Which
drill sergeant.
The drills. Wow. Will. Wow. All right. Well, if anybody, we'll see you guys next week. Episode 9 recap. Jeez. But it looked like he got it so much earlier than who was it? Was it Tyler who was shooting? God, I'm so bad at Tyler's the shorter guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was yeah. So
it was Tyler shooting.
It was Tyler. I thought that he had gotten it so much earlier than Tyler, and then like when they're getting in the boat, like Tyler's right there. Like they were right behind them. They were getting off the boat at essentially the exact same time.
We can talk about that for sure. That kind of ending race for first place between Tyler and Corey and Brett and Chris. Do you want to hop there now? Because I'm with you in that I don't know if this is what you were going to say or your opinion, but that's where the race was lost by Brett and Chris. It wasn't when they made the decision between on foot or the funicular. It was somehow, whether it was in the car or on the water, that's when Tyler and Corey were able to catch up.
Which just confused me because it's like, how did they catch up? Like the way the editing made it seem was that Brett drilled it, was so good at it, and then everybody else just kept shooting. So like either they got lost and they just didn't want to show it, because obviously the fact that Rachel is running she's breaking the record for most legs run in the Amazing Race. They want to highlight her. I mean, she really is she's like a huge star in the Amazing Race. So you have to do that. So maybe they wanted to focus on that more, but I was really surprised when like, they're like, oh my God, there's Brett and Chris. And I'm like, really? I thought that they would have had they would have been across the lake before Tyler and Corey even got to their boat. Yeah, and then they could have just went up on foot.
I was so excited.
I know, I thought they won.
For them to get first place. I was really excited. And then, Tyler and Corey ran on their deal. One thing I will say that I love about this episode, and we talked about this last week, but having the teams have their own cars, I think just so much more interesting, so much better than taxis. And I know they can't do that in every location, but deciding who's driving, give them a map. They don't have GPS, so they got to figure this out. And so many times earlier this season with the cabs, a team either can't track down a cab by means of just luck, like they just can't. I mean, sure, there are some things you can do, but at the end of the day, if cab isn't driving by, you can't make one appear. Or if it has people in it, it's not going to stop to pick you up. So there's a lot of luck involved with that. And then there's also a lot of luck in your driver. How skilled, how knowledgeable is your driver about the city that you're in? How fat, are they just naturally a slow drive? I mean, there are just so many factors that contribute to getting from place to place in a cab that I think luck plays such a big role. So to see them with cars and it's all in their own hands, and we saw it. We saw it last week with Nicole and Victor. We saw it with the Afghanimals this week. It's easy to get lost, and it's completely your fault. You have the same car, the same map. Everything is a level playing field, and I think it's awesome. And if they could do that more, I'd love it.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's easier when you're in countries like Switzerland because there's really not as much congestion. But then when you're in some of these Southeast Asian countries, it's so hard because
the laws are different. And you just if the laws are just to a point where you're gonna kill people if you drive like you would in America. Like you just have to understand how it works. And I know they can't do this in every city they go to. But I'd even prefer on foot. I don't know. I'm forgetting now. Like in Uganda, did they ever have cabs?
I think they did.
They did?
I think so. I could be wrong, but I think they did because I think Tyler and Corey were in a cab talking to the cab driver, and then they had like a confessional about
that's right.
Being gay in Uganda. Mm-hmm. So so I think they did. I mean, but this definitely adds a different element. I have to assume Chris and Brett got lost in some way because they had a big lead. I don't fault them for going to the funicular. I assume that had the funicular been there right when they got there, it probably takes about the same amount of time as on foot. That's my guess. It's just that's why it was like, that's why it's a penalty that you'd have to wait for it. Because I don't think that it would have been much slower than running up on foot.
My guess is that if you go by foot, you're going to get there first. You're going to get there faster than Vinicula. Because Vinicula, those things aren't fast. Those are going straight up. So it's not going to jet.
We didn't get to see really the path, though, because nobody was ever really close to each other, you know?
Right. But I'm just saying, I don't think – I never think that was going to be faster. But I still think Brett and Chris make the right decision here because you got Tyler and Corey right on your tail. If you go on foot, they're going to pass you for sure.
You have to try.
Maybe by chance, like there's a chance that the funicular, or it's just really long. I mean, the longer you have to travel to meet Phil at the mat, the longer that takes, the more valuable the funiculars.
I agree. I totally agree. And yeah.
So if you got to go like 10 miles, okay, yeah, funicular. But if you got to go, a quarter of a mile, then it's going to be.
But you're not going to beat Tyler and Corey in a foot race. So, like, this is one of those, that you're far enough ahead. You're not going to get last place. You're not going to get last place. So you say, we're going for the win. Let's go to the funicular. Brett's obviously not beating Tyler and Corey up the mountain. Chris probably isn't beating them up the mountain. I mean, Tyler and Corey are incredibly fit. They look like they've been running a lot to get ready for the Amazing Race this time around. And so you're not going to beat them up. So I agree with their decision. Once it's like it doesn't come till 10 a.m., it's like, we're second place. Like, there's nothing you can do, and it's a bummer, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And then, so fine. So I guess we go back then. Like I said, there's not it was one of those where there wasn't much drama because once you drill the apple, then you just go. Like, then you just go to the end. And so there wasn't really.
Or Jamal, I always forget. One of them said we're essentially in a head. I think this was actually Jamal, and this is one of those interviews where I'm like, why aren't you actively retrieving your dart right now, your arrow? And he said, essentially, we're in a head-to-head with the Riley sisters right now, and he put it very clear. And this kind of goes back to that where you had this problem. I love the head-to-head. I think I said I didn't want to see it every episode, but I really enjoyed it that episode. And how do you feel about it now, knowing a roadblock like this can essentially be a head-to-head, and it's a super random thing that you might be good at, you might not be?
I'm still not great with it because if you win that leg of the race by 3 hours and then you end up losing because you just can't hit an apple off a head, like I'm not okay with it.
Couldn't that happen? Couldn't you have a 3 hour lead in this leg, get to the apple arrow thing, and then if you can't do it like you couldn't do it in a head-to-head, the same exact thing would happen? You know what I mean?
It would, but I'd rather it be a roadblock because I feel like they're failing at it like that way. Plus with a head-to-head, you're only going against one team and then you stop until the next team shows up. With this, at least you keep firing even as teams are leaving. Like Becca got there first. She wasn't that great at it, but she was able to keep going consistently so that they can get fourth place. Whereas if it's in a head-to-head, yeah, but if it's in a head-to-head, she really does have to wait and can only go against one team at a time. And who knows, everybody could beat her at that. And all of a sudden Team Fun goes home because of that. Like, no way.
Mm-hmm. No,
I'm not on board with
it. I get what you're saying. I just wanted to bring that up because you were, not the biggest fan of the head-to-head when we saw it.
Yeah, I'm still not, but especially now when there's no non-elimination legs and now we're down to like final 6, just run the Amazing
head-to-head for an non-elimination leg.
Oh my God. Then you would probably explode.
Be like, what was the point of that thing?
Yeah, that would be the end of Will. No, and I'm happy now that we know that there's no more non-elimination legs. So it's just like, if you get last place, you're done. And like, there's only 3 episodes left, I think, right? Because 9 will bring it down to 5, 10 will bring it down to 4, 11. No, so there's 4 episodes left of The Amazing Race. Not many, like that's all that's left. So like Brett and Chris making it to episode 9, like that's pretty good. Like that's pretty good. I know they finished last once, but
they almost finished first.
I know they just keep finishing second. I wanted to see them get to go on their vacation together. I wish Brett and Chris would have won something by now so that they could have gone on some sort of vacation together.
And Tyler and Corey say, all right, we don't have time for all these vacations.
Yeah.
You guys take a vacation.
You know what, Chris and Brett, we like you guys. Get up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I'd be looking at it. Like,
if I know Tyler has a YouTube channel, I don't know. He's already taking a lot of time off for the Amazing Race. I don't know if he can go on 3 vacations.
Unless his YouTube channel is literally going on vacations.
Actually,
in which case,
it's probably a good time to make content because you can do touristy stuff and show off where you are, what you're doing, what you're eating.
Yeah, the Amazing Race is definitely helping him with that. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to the Afghanimals and Rachel and Alyssa, and I was still confident that the Afghanimals were going to beat Rachel and Alyssa. And then they do, and Rachel and Alyssa go home,
which is fine at this point.
Yeah, that was 8 episodes. Okay.
Yeah, I was not kind of bummed about the suspense factor here.
Yeah,
didn't bother me one bit.
Exactly. I was like, all right, like I said, as soon as that U-turn happened at the beginning, I was like, Rachel and Alyssa are going home this week. Like and especially we have Rachel saying, "This is my leg. I'm going to do great things." I was like, "Ooh, CBS loves telling people that and then having them fail."
Or like this is they were calling Chris and Brett the worst team. Like, you guys suck. You're one of the worst teams. You know, I really at that point was like, okay, maybe first place isn't a real possibility. And of course, they almost get it.
They almost got it. How would you feel about their decision this week if they lose next week? Would you still be like they made all the right moves? It's just like it's the race.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that's how I feel too. What could they have done to? I mean, who would they have voted? What's the next best move if besides the Riley?
Afghanimals.
That's after seeing it, though. Even in the moment.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, that's after seeing them get lost.
It's got to be Rachel and Alyssa because there's no reason to pick Nicole and Victor because they already have to do a speed bump. So you're thinking, okay, we can beat Nicole and Victor. Plus, you beat Nicole and Victor last time. And then,
or you do pick Nicole and Victor, and it's like, okay, we're really going to lay it on thick for them. Hope they get eliminated, and then the Riley sisters are still there.
Here's my thing.
There is a point to be said that, okay, everybody hates the Riley sisters. Maybe not hate. That's a strong one.
Yeah, that's
no one is really closely aligned with them. They've rubbed people the wrong way. No one's having their backs. So maybe you want to keep them in so that you. But again, this is a U-turn vote. There's probably not going to be a U-turn next week. And in terms of like disadvantaging the other team, there aren't that many opportunities to do it. I don't know. Yeah, people can not like, oh, I don't like them or I want them to go. I don't know if that will have any influence on the game. And then Chris and Brett, it's not like they're the next best option. I think they're the most like not on anyone's radar whatsoever. They're the most non-threatening team in the race. Even Rachel and Alyssa, they've done it before. Or at least Rachel has. So I don't think that benefits Chris and Brett all that much because even if next week, it's not like they're going to be a target, you know?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and for me, the last thing that's in Chris and Brett's mind is Rachel and Alyssa and Nicole and Victor's argument, and they definitely like Nicole and Victor more. And they're like, I think they kind of took like the high road there, where it's like, nah, we're not about this.
Yeah, and if they do choose Nicole and Victor, and let's say Nicole and Victor survive, then you have a team that's going to be actively against you.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree. Who's a really good team?
Yeah, I don't see really any other argument here. Even though it seemed like on the show people were saying this was a dumb game move, I really think especially like we said, Chris and Brett probably know they aren't the strongest team. You know, guarantee that someone else is going to have a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't really know, like, if they go home next week, they go home next week. But I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. So,
yeah, now that the Riley sisters are gone, it seems, even though Chris and Brett got second place, it doesn't look good for them. But if the Riley sisters had been in still, I still think it doesn't look that good for them. I mean, they're not one of these really strong, amazing race teams.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like they're not going to be strong no matter who's there and who's not.
Like
there.
Tyler and Corey, Team Fun, Colin and Christy, they're still all going to be there.
Yeah, you just have to kind of hope that these teams lose, like or get lost. Like that's all you can hope for. Like, yeah, they got second place this week. They beat two teams that got U-turned. They beat a team that had a speed bump. They still lost Tyler and Corey, even though like the roadblock was designed for them, and so was the detour. Like, yeah, you just have to hope that it doesn't come down to a sprint.
Yeah, no running. A leg with no running.
Oh my God.
But this is also why I'm still kind of disappointed. I guess I'm more, I've learned to live with it, that I think the starting times should really be based on your placement. And it could be a week, okay, Chris and Brett, they got second place. Now they get a little bit of an advantage in the next leg, but it's likely going to be an equalizer, and that's going to have zero influence. I just really wish that was a part of it, because that seems to me like that's so much more interesting and more fun. So like a team starts 2 hours behind the first place team and they're able to catch up somehow. That's awesome. And they should be designed so that people can catch up. It shouldn't be easy. But at least have it mean something when you get second place, because they don't get to go to Cambodia on their
Yeah, exactly.
They don't get to do that. So what do they get really? They get survival. That's it. They just move on, and they're probably going to equalize them. It would be awesome if they got like a 20-minute head start on the next team, or however much of a head start.
Yeah, I agree, but they're not going to, or they are, and then they're not.
It's just
going to go away.
I just got to be okay with that. That's part of the show, it seems. We're going into it, and it didn't seem like you knew this either, that wasn't every episode's an equalizer, but we're pretty much, I don't know.
Every episode is.
I think it's been every single episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else that you have to say about this episode, or are we good?
One more observation on Colin and Christy. I think after this week, I think they lose. They're not going to win, and the story is going to be something will trigger Colin. He will resort to his old ways and lose because of it. Now, if that's all true, I don't know, but I think that will be the story presented to us. I think for the first time, we started seeing some cracks in this new, namaste, peaceful, calm Colin.
Mm-hmm.
We see the flashback with the cow, and in that flashback, he's like yelling. He's like, "This is bullshit. Our ox is broken." And word for word says, I won't say it again, but he says BS. He literally says that word, and we've heard all season how he's changed and everything. And then when he's walking this cow and it's not moving, he goes, "This is BS."
Yeah. I like how Will won't say it.
I already said it once. I don't need to keep hammering it in. He says that, and I know it's small, but it's like just a little crack. All right, you follow me here? That
I follow. Yeah, I get
it. A little bit back, and then they are. I think they complete the race in third. They have their post-race interview, and I think Christy's talking about, it's really a compliment that we got the votes for the U-turn. We don't hold it against anybody. We treat getting third place as winning. Really, this namaste, just love everyone, be happy, be calm, be chill. And then Colin chimes in and says, "Yeah, we're fine with it. We're fine with it once. You try that again, and it's on." And so I really think that this episode was laying the groundwork for some sort of ending to Colin and Christy, where Colin is going to revert to his old ways, not dissimilar to Survivor Second Chance. Anyone who was changing their game was doing great, and then often if they reverted back to something they did on their original season, that would be the episode they get out, or it would be an episode that sets up their downfall for a future episode.
Yeah.
So I do think that they're not taking this home. And if you watch, there might have been a couple other little pieces of evidence that point to that. But this episode, you could really start to see it, that I don't think Colin's going to be able to keep it together until the end.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could buy that.
I
That
could be
makes sense.
completely wrong. Again, I'm going to
You
make it
could.
casual. But for the first time, because I'm really someone who's bought into this, I said it last week. I am buying that he has actually changed, and that this isn't just a put on. So when he just says the same exact line he said when he ended up. That might have been the leg they ended up losing it. I'm not sure about that. I'm just a casual. So
Yeah, I don't know how much effort goes into the editing of Amazing Race for like that type of thing. I think you're viewing it from like more of a Survivor standpoint, but you could be right. I'm not going to say you're wrong.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Anyone does a rewatch of The Amazing Race, definitely look out
For some hints.
for just those little, or
Well, as long as Colin loses. If Colin and Christy win, then there's no reason to rewatch it because Will was just wrong.
I just mean this episode. If you're gonna rewatch it before watching next week. Another thing, also, just keep an eye out for it next week.
Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
if they do a flashback and then show him repeating something that he did in some temperamental flashback.
Yeah, they've shown that flashback a couple times now of him with the cow. So they've definitely done that a couple times. But
And that could all just be building up to that this was a cow episode.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. There actually was a very
But there
similar
wasn't
thing.
much to it. I mean, it was like, okay, there was a cow, and that was, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I don't know, man. You're at least you're trying to theorize about the end. I'm just hoping Brett and Chris keep surviving.
Brett and Brett win. That's the ultimate goal.
That would be insane if they actually won. That'd be hilarious. If Chris and Brett win this season, wow.
Where would you
That's
put
awesome.
them in your winner rankings?
Oh, they'd be number one, no doubt.
Same here, I think.
Yeah, they're just playing possum the whole season. Oh, unbelievable. Well, anyway, Will, I really don't have anything else because that Colin, like you put so much more thought into that Colin thing than I put into anything, and I can't even lie about it.
I'm sorry. I mean, I just started noticing it, and then at the very end, because I had noticed it in mid-episode, and at the end, it's like that was your one chance to come at me. And if you come at me again, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my ass.
I'm gonna kill you. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're right. I'm gonna look for that now. Now there's excitement coming into these next 4 episodes. Maybe only one episode because he loses it next week. I mean, I'm excited anyway, but now I'm like really excited.
Yeah, I could see.
Got to set up a new villain, right? The Rileys are gone, so you need.
Yeah, I could see them making final 3, and during that final leg, knowing that they're not going to win, they're too far behind, and at that point, Colin will lose it because he knows it's over and lost. But then the show will portray it as that's what caused them. He lost his composure, reverted to his old ways, and was not able to pull out the win, even though the chronological order is probably reversed. He probably loses it because he knows he lost.
Yeah, no,
Again,
that's fair.
No idea. This is first season of Amazing Race that I am watching. So
you're making things up as you go.
Exactly.
I totally understand that. Well, I guess I'm going to close it out, Will.
Sure. I guess we can give a big thank you to the getting 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Because that happened.
We blew it away now.
The most recent episode on the YouTube channel was the Amazing Race podcast from last week when that milestone was passed.
Yes.
So I think we can give almost all credit to the Amazing Race fans and the listeners of this podcast. I don't know if anyone's even checking out some of the other stuff that you and Alexa have been doing. That's kind of on the back burner right now.
I will say that definitely our most viewed video in the last week and a half was the Amazing Race episode 7 recap, no doubt. Right. No doubt, Will. Like no doubt in the last week and a half, that's our most viewed episode by a lot. None of these other tell-alls are really doing it for us. But yes, we did cross 5,000. Now we're almost up to like 5,300. So it's like, God, that's not even a milestone anymore. Like yawn, we passed it too easily. So now who wants to be 6,000? Come on, Amazing Racers, get in there and be our 6,000th. That's all we want now. Hey, after we hit 800, Will had tweeted next stop 1 million. So, we're still on our way to that, but that was back when Will was funny. Yeah, you got nothing to say to that, huh? Okay.
I think 1 million's still very much in the realm of possibility.
Dude, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming for sure. If we keep putting out great material on the Amazing Race like this, it's coming. 1 million right around the corner. But anyway, thank you for listening to the Amazing Race podcast. Thank you for being our 5,000 subscriber, whoever you are. Will and I will. We should probably do one of these on a Wednesday. We'll try to be back next Wednesday, but we'll see. No promises. We're casuals. We're not specialists.
Yeah. If we were specialists, we'd be right here after like the East Coast feed of the episode. But we're just
6 p.m.
Couple casuals.
So we'll be back sometime next week. For anybody who's a huge Survivor fan, as I'm sure you already know, Eric Halfman on Saturday, Aurora McCreary on Sunday. So we got a big weekend coming up for that. And
you had other ones that you've already done that maybe people haven't listened to yet.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to the War Dog one, don't listen to it because he's getting really excited. He's about to break Adam Klein's record for most views on a tell-all on a Survivor Specialist episode. And we want Kelly to try to break it before him because it would just be like rubbing salt in the wound. But he's only like 300 views away, so he's definitely going to get there before Kelly, although Kelly's only like 1,500 away, and she was a whole week behind him. So,
and then Lauren might.
Lauren's crushing it right now. Kelly had 6,000 views in 24 hours, and Lauren's almost there. And I'm kind of surprised. I didn't realize that Lauren's got quite the following. I was not expecting her to have as much of one as she had, more than Kelly. I'm a little shocked there. But so War Dog's probably going to break Adam's record, and then both ladies are probably just going to break War Dog's, and War Dog's just going to go into hiding because he's the least viewed out of the Lesu 3 on the Survivor Specialist YouTube channel, which will just kill him. But yeah, if you haven't checked those out, and if you're following us on iTunes, make sure to go listen to part 1 and part 2 of the War Dog Tell-All because it needed to be divided into 2 parts. And Kelly and Lauren's are both up there as well. Although if you're going to listen to Kelly's, I highly recommend watching it on YouTube because the ending is quite something. So go check that out that way. I would say, well, did you watch the ending? Do you agree that it's worth watching rather than listening to?
I think I saw part of it live and then I did listen to it. I don't think it's too bad to listen to.
When everybody just comes in. I mean, it's more for just look at War. I think if you can see War Dog's face when he realizes that he's not having as good of a moment as he thought he was going to have, it's great. Like he was going to come in like all excited and he forgot to mute the video behind him. So it's pretty outstanding to see his face as he's trying to figure out what's going on with the technology in front of him. He was really pumped to just come in and make his announcement and get out, and he couldn't even do it. So it was fun. It was fun. But yeah, so I'll see everybody on Saturday. Everybody will see Will sometime next week. And bye.
Bye.